Hey guys, welcome back. In my previous sessions, I discussed about respiratory organs, mechanism of breathing. The links are provided in the description. You can watch them for the details. Today, I'll be discussing about the topics exchange of gases and transport of gases. These topics are from the chapter Breathing and Exchange of Gases from class 11 biology. Let's start with today's topics. Exchange of gases. Alveoli are the primary sites of exchange of gases. These alveoli are functional units of lungs. They are tiny, hollow, cup-like cavities found in the lungs where the gaseous exchange occur. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. So these are the sites where the gas exchange can occur. Primary sites, alveoli, and the other sites like between blood and tissues in the body. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on pressure or concentration gradients. Here, simple diffusion is nothing but the spontaneous movement of gaseous molecules, in this case, from their higher concentration to lower concentration. And the pressure gradient is nothing but differences in the pressure across diffusion membrane, or concentration gradient is similarly the differences in the concentration. So this is about the simple diffusion across the diffusion membrane based on pressure gradient or concentration gradient. Solubility of gases as well as the thickness of the membranes. I repeat it again. Solubility of the gases as well as the thickness of the membranes involved in diffusion are also some important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. Yes. So these are the various factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. One of the factors is pressure or concentration gradient. Second, solubility of the gases. Third, the thickness of the diffusion membrane or respiratory surface. So these factors affect the rate of diffusion. Here, the pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure. Very important concept. I repeat this once again. Pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure of that particular gas. Partial pressure is represented as small p O2 for oxygen and small p CO2 for partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So this is partial pressure of oxygen and this is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Very important concept. Partial pressure is the pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases. Yes. Let's discuss about partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide in different parts. Here you can see in atmospheric air, partial pressure of oxygen is 159 mm of Hg and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 0.3. Moving to the next, in alveoli, partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mm of Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide in alveoli is 40. Next, in deoxygenated blood, partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mm of Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide in deoxygenated blood is 45 mm of Hg. Moving to the next, in oxygenated blood, partial pressure of oxygen is 95 mm of Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 mm of Hg. And in the tissues, the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mm of Hg, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 mm of Hg. So you can see here the pressure gradients, the differences in the pressure you can see in different parts. Okay, alveoli, deoxygenated blood, oxygenated blood, tissue. You can see the pressure gradients in different parts. This is how we can see the pressure gradients in different parts, and that is one of the very important factor that affects the rate of diffusion of gases. Here we can see in alveolar air, partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mm Hg, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 mm Hg. So here oxygen partial pressure is higher when compared with the partial pressure of oxygen in deoxygenated blood, which is about 40 mm Hg. So obviously oxygen diffuses into the blood from higher partial pressure to lower partial pressure. Similarly, carbon dioxide partial pressure in alveoli is 40 mm Hg, and in deoxygenated blood 45 mm Hg. So from higher partial pressure to lower partial pressure, carbon dioxide will diffuse through the diffusion membrane. So this is how exchange of gases occur in alveolus. Similarly, in body tissues also these gases exchange occur. Gases will diffuse from their higher partial pressure to lower partial pressure. So this is about gases exchange occurring in alveoli and between blood and body tissues. Moving to the next, the solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen. Very important statement. I repeat this once again. The solubility of carbon dioxide is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen. So, obviously, the rate of diffusion of carbon dioxide will be higher when compared with that of oxygen per unit difference in partial pressures. So, this is one important aspect. Now, moving to the next, the diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers, namely the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, next endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the third basement substance in between them. So these are the three major layers. Very important. I repeat this once again. The diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers. The first one, thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, squamous flat cells. Second, endothelium of alveolar capillaries, single layered epithelial cells. Endothelium is found in the blood vessels, lymphatic vessels. So endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the third, basement substance in between them. So these are the three layers. However, its total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Even though there are three layers, the total thickness is much less than a millimeter. You can see here, this is alveolus and this is the capillary, alveolar capillary, and between these two the basement substance. Okay, so this is the squamous epithelium of alveolus and this is the basement substance between the squamous epithelium of alveolus and the endothelium of capillary. So this is the endothelium of capillary. So these are the three layers as we discussed here. The first, thin squamous epithelium of alveolus. So this is the thin squamous epithelium of alveolus. Okay. The second is the endothelium of alveolar capillary. You can see here, this is endothelium of alveolar capillary, and in between these two the basement substance, you can see this slight yellow colored substance between these two is basement substance. So this is an alveolus with pulmonary capillary. So this is a diffusion membrane. This is a diffusion membrane. Okay, and its total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Moving to the next, transport of gases. Blood is the medium of transport for oxygen and carbon dioxide. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood. Very important statement. I repeat this once again. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood, and the remaining 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through the plasma. So 97% of oxygen transported by RBCs, 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. Moving to the next, nearly 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBCs, whereas 70% of carbon dioxide is carried as bicarbonate. So this is very important. 70% of carbon dioxide is carried as bicarbonate. Important. And about 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. So this is how oxygen and carbon dioxide are transported. Here, hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment present in RBCs. Hemoglobin is a respiratory protein. Hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment present in the RBCs. It is a respiratory protein. Oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin, important. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 oxygen molecules. Very important question for your exams. I repeat this once again. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. Okay? Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to partial pressure of oxygen, as we discussed earlier. The rate of diffusion is affected by partial pressure of gas. Okay? Here, partial pressure of oxygen. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration and temperature are the other factors which can interfere with this binding. So these are the other factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration and temperature. These are the other factors which can interfere with the binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. Okay? Now, moving to the next. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against partial pressure of oxygen. I repeat this once again, very important. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against partial pressure of oxygen. This curve is called oxygen dissociation curve. You can see here, this is oxygen dissociation curve. You can see on x-axis partial pressure of oxygen. On y-axis percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. So this is a sigmoid curve. Binding of first oxygen molecule with the hemoglobin is difficult, but once the first oxygen molecule binds, that induces a conformational change in the structure of hemoglobin, which facilitates an easy binding of successive oxygen molecules with hemoglobin. And the binding continues until the maximum amount that can be bound is achieved. You can see here, as the partial pressure of oxygen increases, the more and more oxygen molecules bind with the hemoglobin. The percentage saturation of hemoglobin will also increase. As it reaches the maximum level, then the curve levels and a very few additional binding will occur, and this is how the sigmoid curve is obtained. This is S-shaped or sigmoid curve. This is called oxygen dissociation curve. I repeat this once again. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against partial pressure of oxygen. So this curve is oxygen dissociation curve. Oxygen dissociation curve is highly useful in studying the effect of factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, etc. on binding of oxygen with hemoglobin. How these factors are affecting can be understood from this oxygen dissociation curve. After this, transport of oxygen. In the alveoli, all the factors are favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Here, all the factors can be like partial pressure of oxygen, which is very high in the alveoli, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, hydrogen ion concentration is low, temperature is low. So these are the different factors that are favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. In the tissues, conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. So in the tissues, partial pressure of oxygen is less, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is higher, hydrogen ion concentration is higher, temperature is higher. So these conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, this clearly indicates that oxygen gets bound to hemoglobin in the lung surface and gets dissociated at the tissues. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. Very important for your exams. I repeat this once again. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. After this, transport of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is carried out by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin, about 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported in this manner. I repeat this once again. Carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin, and this is about 20 to 25%. When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is low, as in the tissues, more binding of carbon dioxide occurs. Okay? When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high, as in the alveoli, dissociation of carbon dioxide from carbaminohemoglobin takes place. That is, carbon dioxide which is bound to hemoglobin from the tissues is delivered at the alveoli. So this is how transport of carbon dioxide occurs. And one of the very important concepts in connection with this is RBCs contain a very high concentration of carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Very important. The name of the enzyme, carbonic anhydrase. So RBCs contain a very high concentration of carbonic anhydrase, and minute quantities of the same is present in the plasma too. Okay? This enzyme, carbonic anhydrase, facilitates the following reaction in both the directions. Here, carbon dioxide and water, they are forming H2CO3, and that dissociates to HCO3 minus plus H plus. So in both the directions, the reaction will occur. The enzyme carbonic anhydrase facilitate the following reaction in both the directions. Very important. The name of the enzyme is carbonic anhydrase, and RBCs contain a very high concentration of carbonic anhydrase. Okay, this is bicarbonate. We discussed 70% of carbon dioxide is transported in this form, bicarbonate. Very important. After this, at the tissue site, carbon dioxide diffuses into blood, that is RBCs and plasma, and forms bicarbonate and H plus. At the alveolar site, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to the formation of carbon dioxide and water. Thus, carbon dioxide trapped as bicarbonate at the tissue level and transported to the alveoli is released out as carbon dioxide. So this is how carbon dioxide is transported. So every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. Very important for your exams. I repeat this once again. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. Very important. Remember it. After this, let's discuss some important questions from the topics that we have discussed so far. Let's start. The first question. About dash of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood? Answer is 97%. So about 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood. Next question. Each hemoglobin molecule carry a maximum of dash molecules of oxygen. Answer is 4. That is, each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. After this, let's proceed with the next question. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around dash oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. Answer is 5 ml. So every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. Next question. Dash enzyme facilitate the following reaction in both the directions, that is carbon dioxide plus water, H2CO3, bicarbonate plus H plus. So this reaction in both the directions is facilitated by an enzyme, carbonic anhydrase. This is all about today's session. For more videos, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. If you like the video, share it with your friends. I'll be back with another session. Have a great day. Thank you all.